The first annual ramp dinner fundraiser for the newly formed New River Gorge Historical Society was held Saturday, April 4th, 2026 at the Hawks Nest State Park Lodge in West Virginia. The fundraiser benefited the New River Gorge Historical Society. The host speaker was David Sybray. Other speakers were Doug Wood, Jody French Burr, and Tara Tyree.
Jody was, but I'm going to try my best, okay? Thank you for having me, first of all. They called me the family historian when he put the post out, so I'm not going to take this very lightly. This isn't just history to me. This is my family story, and it's deeply rooted right here in Fayette County. You can't talk about Fayette County without talking about the Tyrees. So this is more than a story about one family. It's a story about a road, a town, a community, and how one name became part of all three. And today, I want to take you back to where it all began to show you how that story is still right here with us and still unfolding today. But like many family stories, it didn't start here. This is the Tyree family crest. This traces back to Scotland. The family crest once served as a form of identity, especially in a time when many people couldn't read and write. Every symbol meant something: strength, identity, values. The Tyree crest carries the motto, Per Ardua, meaning through difficulties. And that says a lot, because success wasn't given back in those days. It was earned. You fought for it. Over time, that legacy made its way here, and the road that carried it would shape everything that followed. In the early 1800s, the James River and Canal Turnpike became one of the most important routes through this region. It followed paths that existed long before, including Native American trails that had already been carved through these mountains. But once it was built, it became something much more. It connected eastern Virginia to the Canal Valley, opening the door for travel, trade, and settlement. Stagecoaches passed through, wagons carried goods, families moved west searching for opportunity. Everything moved along this route. People, news, supplies, all of it. It became the lifeline of this region, and along that lifeline, communities began to take shape. Communities like the town of Anstead, a small mountaintop town full of history and character. Over time, it's changed names: Woodville, Mountain Cove, before finally becoming and staying Anstead. Like many towns along the turnpike, its growth was shaped by the traffic that passed through it. Families lived, worked, and built their lives here, and among them was the Tyree family. And that's where this story truly begins to come to life. This is the Tyree Tavern, the halfway house. Sat right along that route. But it was more than just a stop. It was the center of activity. This building dates back to the late 1700s, making it one of the oldest structures in Fayette County. By the early 1800s, it had become a major stopping place. And in 1838, when Francis and William Tyree purchased the property, the Tyree name became part of everything that happened here in Fayette County. Travelers arrived after long days through the mountains. Stagecoaches pulled in carrying people, mail, and news. Horses were changed, meals were served, and stories were shared, just like we're doing here today. And if you wanted to know what was happening in the world, that's where you went. During the Civil War in 1861 and 1862, this building served as headquarters for both Confederate and Union forces, and may have even been used as a hospital. William Tyree served as a Confederate captain, and 2 of his sons served alongside him. So don't picture something quiet when you're picturing the Tyree Tavern. Picture movement, voices, wagons pulling in, people coming and going. This was more than a building. This was where the Tyree family stood at the center of it all. This was the heartbeat of the road. And it wasn't just local traffic that came through here. Some of the most well-known figures of the 19th century traveled this route. Henry Clay, Daniel Webster, Matthew Fontaine Maury, Stonewall Jackson. When they passed through these mountains, they stopped here at the Tyree Tavern because it was a halfway point. Maury, later known as the Pathfinder of the Seas, is even said to have worked on his writings while staying here. That alone tells you what this place meant. This place was connected to the wider world. And the Tyree family wasn't just watching history pass by, they were the ones making it possible. They fed the travelers, they changed the horses, they kept everything moving. And one of those travelers was, of course, Stonewall Jackson. He stayed here in 1855, not as a general yet, but as a son. He had come to visit his mother's grave just a few blocks away, and that's where the story begins to change. Westlake Cemetery, just a few blocks from the tavern, the story grows quieter. The land, donated in 1883 by Colonel William Tyree, and it still holds generations of the Tyree family today. That tells you something. They didn't just pass through here, they stayed here. Somewhere in that cemetery was the grave Jackson had come to find. Unmarked at the time, not even certain he stood in the right place. This isn't just history written in books. This is history held in the land, in the families who lived it, and the people still remembered there. A reminder of just how deeply history is rooted here in Fayette County. And at the center of it all is the Tyree family. Just beyond Anstead, the story continues. About 17 miles east along the same route, Old Stone House, built in 1824 by Richard Tyree. We didn't build the Tyree Tavern all those years ago. We bought it. We built the Old Stone House in 1824. And that matters because this wasn't just another stop along the turnpike either. This was something the Tyree family built with their bare hands. If the tavern was the heartbeat of the road, this was the backbone. Stone by stone, by hand. Not just for a moment, it was built to last. Travelers came through here, just like they did in Anstead, but this place carried a different kind of presence. It wasn't just busy, it was strong. It stood through time, through war, through generations, and even today, it's still standing. You can go, it's privately owned, but you could go out there today and look at this house, see pock marks from the wars, and see a piece of history. This wasn't just a building along the road. This was the Tyree family putting something permanent into Fayette County. Some places pass with time, but this is something the Tyree family built to endure. And just up the road from the Old Stone House, the story becomes even more personal. This is the Tyree Family Cemetery, right up the road from the Old Stone House. Tucked back into the woods, there's a small Tyree Family Cemetery, easy to miss if you don't know where to look, surrounded by old stone walls, set apart from everything else, but still very much part of this land. This is where the members of the Tyree family from the 1800s are buried. Some of those stones date back to the Civil War era, weathered, worn, but still standing. And when you look at those names, those dates, you begin to understand something. The same family that built along this road, that ran the taverns, that lived and worked in this community, is still here. Not in the records, not in just stories, but in the ground itself. And standing here, you realize this isn't distant history. It's something you can walk up to, stand beside, and still be part of today. And it's not just the places that tell the story. It's the people, because behind every name there was a life, a family, a story. And one of those stories is Aunt Jeannie Tyree. She and her husband lived on a mountainside near Plum Orchard Creek, about 6 miles from town. They worked the land, they lived simply, they made do with what they had. The mail carrier, they traded what they couldn't grow. They traded what they could grow for what they couldn't grow. The mail carrier would take their orders into town and bring back what they needed. She didn't go to the store often. In fact, she hadn't been to the store in 20 years. Can anybody imagine not going to the store for 20 years? You didn't go? When she did go back to the store, it was to repay a small debt that had been left unsettled all that time. Imagine owing somebody money for 20 years and thinking one day, oh, I need to go repay this to them. It doesn't happen today. And that says everything, not just about how they lived, but who they actually were. Because that's what per ardua meant, not something written. It was something lived.
Exactly.
Here we have another article published in August of 1956. This gives us a different kind of look at the Tyree family. Not through buildings, not through business, but through family. It talks about a Tyree family reunion and mentions something really important, that this family had been gathering together for over 100 years. Think about that. Even by 1956, that was already a century of connection. Generations of people coming back to the same place, staying connected to each other and to this county. It even mentions the family cemetery here in Anstead. Another reminder that this history isn't just written down, it's still here. This slide shows you this wasn't just a family that stayed connected to each other. They stayed connected to this community. That connection showed up in many different ways, not in just gathering together, but in how they showed up for people when it mattered the most. This photograph shows a horse-drawn funeral hearse associated with the Tyree family. This wasn't just transportation. This was a service to the community in some of the most difficult moments in people's lives. Families depended on people like this, not just for a service, but for care, for dignity, and for trust. And what's meaningful is this didn't end. This service didn't end. The Tyree Funeral Home is still serving families today in Oak Hill and Mount Hope, carrying that same sense of care forward. And that same connection didn't just show up in difficult moments. These are business receipts. This is part of everyday life. This document shows several businesses connected to the Tyree name in packs. You can see Bailey and Tyree listed as manufacturers, along with handwritten records, a reminder of how everything was done at that time. You wanted to keep track of it, you wrote it down. There was no other way. There's also Tyree and Dew providing funeral and ambulance services. Tyree's Feed Store, supplying everyday needs to the people of this county. So the Tyree family wasn't just there in people's hardest moments. They were part of their daily lives, in business, in farming, in the community itself. Everything was local. Everything was personal. And over time, that presence didn't just continue, it grew from everyday business to something more foundational. By this point, the Tyree name had become part of the financial life of the community. Here, we see Jeff Tyree working inside the Bank of Packs, and that marks an important shift of the time, from early survival to helping build the institutions that allowed these communities to grow. Because banks weren't just places for money, they were places that people actually trusted, places that helped families build and save and move forward and grow, and the Tyree name was part of that too. This is where all of that history starts to come together. This is the Tyree family line, stretching from those early generations all the way down to today. Each name represents a piece of that story. People who lived here, worked here, built their lives here. And when you look at it like this, you see something. This wasn't just one moment in time. This was generations. And that story didn't stop. It continued. And that's where this story becomes a little bit more personal for me. This is my grandfather, Joe Tyree, pictured here with his brothers and sisters, and beside it are his parents. This is the generation that carried that history forward, not in books, but in everyday life. They lived here. They worked here. He worked in the coal mines, but he also served this country in World War II. He was part of the Seabees. So, that means a lot. They raised their families here. And for me, this isn't just something I learned later. This is what I grew up knowing. My family. The connection didn't stop there. This is my mom and dad sitting over there. Put you in the spotlight.
You done good, Mom and Dad.
And on the right side here is my dad, Dwayne Tyree, whose father was Joe that you just seen in the last picture, being recognized as the Wastewater Operator of the Year in 2010. That's not a job that most people line up to do, but it's one that matters. It's hard work, often behind the scenes, and not always noticed, but he took it on, and he excelled. One of the few people in the state that holds a Class 4 wastewater and a Class 3 water license. And to me, that says just as much about this family as anything in the history books, because the work may change over time, but the work ethic does not. This is where this story comes to today for me. This is me being sworn in as the Fayette County Assessor, first female to ever serve in this role here in Fayette County. And I'll be honest, the job isn't always easy, but nobody likes the taxman. When I think about everything that came before me, though, that motto comes to mind: per ardua, through difficulties, because that's what this work is. Showing up every day, doing the work, serving the people of this county. And just like those before me, I believe in being present, face to face, working with people, and helping them understand. Because this has never been about a title. This is service. This is continuing a legacy of serving the people of Fayette County. When you step back and you look at it all, the road, the taverns, the land, the people, you begin to see something bigger. This isn't just history. This is a legacy. And for me, it's an honor to carry that forward. I often think if those who came before me could see us now, they would be proud. They know the Tyree name is still here, still serving this community, from past to present, still showing up, still serving. Tyree family story didn't end. It's just ours to continue. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed that.
Oh, yeah.
My very first time, but it did mean a lot because as I dug into the history, I did learn that, like I said, we've been serving this community and this county for centuries. And it didn't just stop with them. It started with them, but it didn't stop with them.
Good job.
Thank you.
Very, very good.
Thank you.